Hello, and welcome to The Queer Gaze, a gay movie podcast dedicated to examining queer representation and issues.
In today's episode, we're continuing our exploration of queer films on the theme of family drama. If you want to hear more of the discussion, including our Chili Pepper Award, please support The Queer Gaze at Patreon/The Queer Gaze.
You'll also get access to main feed episodes as well as extra content.
And you can follow us everywhere on social media at The Queer Gaze. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Conrad. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Excited to be covering a very, very popular film today.
Indeed, yes. Of the triptych of films that we're covering on family drama, this is definitely the most popular and well-known title.
Indeed, yes. So this one is an Oscar winner, although there was some question on the night as to whether it actually won.
Oh my God. I hate that, unfortunately, every time we talk about this film, we have to bring it up in conversation because it's just such a lightning rod. Like, it's the thing that everyone remembers about the film, but God, it just tarnishes this film's reputation.
It really does, yeah. So this is, of course, Moonlight, the 2016 American coming-of-age drama film, written and directed by Barry Jenkins, based on an unpublished semi-autobiographical play by Terrell Alvin McCraney, and it stars three different actors playing the same role at different ages.
Mm-hmm.
You have Alex Hibbert as the child version of Chiron, Ashton Sanders as the teen, and Trevante Rhodes as the adult. And you also have Andre Holland, Janelle Monáe, Naomi Harris, and Mahershala Ali in the film. So it's got an incredible cast.
Yes.
And the log line for this one is: a young African-American man grapples with his identity and sexuality whilst experiencing the everyday struggles of childhood, adolescence, and burgeoning adulthood.
Yes, that is correct. Underselling it a little bit, but yes.
It is, yes. I mean, I haven't watched this since the year it won the Oscars.
Me too.
Yeah, I don't know why I hadn't revisited it since. And I was just blown away by it yet again. It is simply a stunning piece of work and probably one of the most deserving Best Film Oscar winners in recent memory, at least.
Yeah, I had forgotten how stunningly gorgeous this movie is. Just, I mean, not to diminish anybody's work on other movies, but there's something about Black people working with Black talent and knowing how to light and style and just embrace the, I don't know. It sounds like now I'm being a little bit weird, but this is people working at the top of their craft, and it is an exceptionally captivating film.
Yeah. It's one of those things that is difficult because what can two white guys say about this movie? You kind of feel as though you're trapped into making generalizations thematically or just blindly praising it because you're white and you assume that it must be worthy because you have so little to go on in terms of understanding the unique milieu of the film, the depiction of a world of a childhood that you couldn't necessarily imagine yourself as middle-class guys. But there's something about it that is just so incredibly universal and touching that really hits home every time you watch it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'll admit, I'm generally uncomfortable with the idea that people are unable to review films from outside of a culture from which they identify, because I think that would just naturally limit and tokenize and drive people into very niche slots, right? But I take your point that there's probably definitely elements of the film that either don't resonate as closely with us because of our own lived experiences compared to what's depicted on screen. But yeah, like, I can't deny that when you say there's something kind of universal about this movie, and to me, it's a lot of the aching, the earnestness, the wanting something more. I think as queer people, we can definitely connect to the emotional journey that this character is going on. Like, the internalized homophobia that Chiron experiences is definitely something that I grappled with. And obviously, when we start to mix and meld that with issues of race, that's when we get pushed outside of our comfort zones, because it's harder for us to speak to that, and maybe we shouldn't. But the reality is that I think the film does a very good job of capturing what those experiences are like in a way that still connects to audiences who aren't Black.
And speaking of which, Barry Jenkins, of course, was hesitant about adapting this particular work because he is a self identified straight man,
Mm-hmm.
and he was confused about the potential jeopardy of being a straight guy making a film about a queer experience.
Right.
But at the same time, he was very keen to not just be a passive ally of the LGBTQ plus community,
Mm-hmm.
but to be an active one. So to actually work at it, to
Right.
apply himself to realizing this experience. And I think he absolutely nailed it. There's no
Oh yeah.
question about that.
Yeah, and the reality is that people can definitely work and create art outside of their own lived experience. Otherwise, again, we would
Mm.
be very limited. I think part of it is that you then have a responsibility to surround yourself with other people, to do your research, to listen, and that's part of what it means to be an ally. But also, Barry Jenkins, at the time, he didn't have as much creative power as he does now because, of course, he's the writer and director of an Oscar-winning film. So,
Mm.
but he's gone on to create a number of very successful films and television shows, in part because of the cachet he got from this. But I would argue that the reason this film is as successful as it is because he did the work.
He absolutely did. The thing that I find particularly interesting that he's exploring here in relation to race is Black masculinity. That's the thing
Yeah.
that he really keys in on.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that I found fascinating because it seems as though it is a particular form of masculinity that gets very close to tipping over into toxicity.
Hmm.
And that is something that is definitely explored in this film with great nuance, I thought.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that's one of the benefits of having this spread across three different phases of an individual's life, right? In little sections, so the film is literally divided into three parts. So there's little, and then Sharon, and then Black. And, one of the hard parts about watching the first section of the film is that this is a child who doesn't know anything, right? Like the moment where he goes to Juan, that's the Mahershala Ali's house, and he says, like, what is F slur? Like, what does that mean? Because he doesn't understand, but it's something that he's been called. It's something that he's faced, bullying, physical violence. Clearly, he's in a domestic abuse situation with his mother, and so he asks the only person in his life that he truly feels safe with and who mentors him. And it's a devastating moment because you can tell that he doesn't understand it, but also he knows enough that he doesn't want to be it. And we can see the impact of that percolating through the teenage years and then into adulthood. And you're just like, oh, yeah, like there's a reason that this man turns up broken in another man's diner and then house and says, I have never experienced intimacy with another man except for one moment with you. And it's because society has taught him to hate himself.
Yeah, and worse than that, he's never been touched by anyone
Mm-hmm.
other than this man. Yeah, which is literally
Yeah.
devastating, but incredibly brave. I mean,
Yeah.
what a thing to say to another human being. And you can see how dangerous he feels that moment is, which makes it doubly devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that scene with Juan. It's quite an interesting arc for Chiron on the whole, because you get the sense of that, the naming of the triptychs obviously is very pointed too. So it's the middle one where he does have an experience with Kevin,
Mm-hmm.
the character who's played by Andre Holland as an adult, and Jarell Jerome as a teenager, which is where this moment happens. So you get the sense that that's the one where he is his truest self,
Yeah.
or he gets closest to being his truest sense. And then when he's Black, he's an interesting combination of projecting the two most influential people in his life.
Mm-hmm.
He's going by Kevin's nickname for him, even though he objected to it at the time.
Yep.
And he is a drug dealer, and he is as beefed up and as butch as you could possibly be.
Yes.
I get the sense out of hero worship of Juan,
Yep.
the mentor character from the beginning, even though he's completely missed the point of what made that character so important in his life,
Yeah.
which was his tenderness and his care
Mm-hmm.
for him, which he displays none of. Well, at least not until he sees Kevin again, when he all of a sudden all of it falls away and you just see him as a teenager again, which is an incredible piece of performance.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of the reason that this is so difficult to watch is because you're watching a person deliberately stunt their own growth out of deference to, like, basically it's a survival tactic, right? Like, everything in the childhood and then teenage section has taught this boy, if you are your authentic self, that means that you're not performing blackness correctly. It means you're not performing masculinity correctly.
Yeah.
And it means that you're subjecting yourself to a life of being excluded, being beaten down, never finding true. No, I was going to say never finding true intimacy, but the reality is that he does find that with Kevin on the beach. But I think even in the immediate aftermath of that moment, his first impulse is to say sorry, as though he has made a mistake on acting on the thing that he wants and the thing that, you can't deny of yourself. Your sexual orientation is not something that you can change. But I really love how it intersects in those various facets, because I think one of the dangers of Moonlight is that it's really easy for people to say, well, it's a black movie or it's a gay movie. And it's like, well, actually, no, it's a black gay movie. And it's also about, like, the damaging impacts of, like, the drug trade on, like, marginalized people or people of, like, low economic status. Like, I think it's easy to write this film off as one thing because it's harder to accept what it's actually saying and doing.
Yeah. The interesting thing there as well is I was particularly taken with an interview by Naomi Harris, who plays Sharon's mother. You talk about the
Mm,
importance of the drug aspect in this movie, the damage that it does to his relationships, to his whole neighborhood, really. The
hmm.
complexity of his hero worship with Juan, who is supplying his mother with drugs, which he feels
Yeah.
very conflicted about because he's damaging the life of this kid that he's also,
Rescuing.
yeah, being a father figure to. The complexity of these things is commendable because it's not stereotypical, it's not easy.
Hmm.
None of these figures that he's looking up to are binary great figures. Like, even Kevin is someone who betrays him when he performatively plays black masculinity or just masculinity, playground masculinity,
Hmm.
and beats him to the ground. And Naomi Harris was talking about how she did not want to play this character
Yeah.
because she made a rule for herself that she would not engage in negative depictions of black women because there were enough of them in the world.
Oh, yeah.
But then she read the script and realized just how beautifully complex and fascinating and full this character is, that you're not just seeing a stereotypical crack addict, that this is a real woman
Hmm. Yeah.
grappling with real problems.
Yeah, yeah. And she absolutely is a crack addict. And then we see her in the third section, and she is absolutely a woman in recovery who is trying to make amends and
Mm.
really worries that she has injured her relationship with her son and damaged him. And I love all of that, to the point where I think that Paula is such an interesting character that I would have happily taken more of her. But unfortunately, that's not what the movie is about. But yeah, like Naomi Harris, I was shocked to see that she didn't end up getting an awards nomination for this performance.
I think she was nominated, but she didn't win. But I mean,
Mm,
she was up against Octavia Spencer, and
right.
which is a shame.
Mm,
She did all of her scenes in 3 days, which is just
which is shocking. Yeah.
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. She did her scenes in 3 days, and Mahershala Ali did his in five.
Yeah. And they're just incredible. Mahershala, of course, did win
Hmm.
an Oscar, which is great. Yeah, I think there's one particular moment because Barry Jenkins really does take great advantage of this triptych. Interestingly, originally, apparently, the play plays all three stages of the character's life concurrently,
Yeah.
and you don't even realize that they're the same character until about halfway through, which
Hmm.
fascinating structure. And this,
Yeah.
I think, was inspired, Barry Jenkins said, by a Taiwanese film by Hu Xiaoxian called Three Times, which shows three separate stories of romance played by the same actors in different eras. The
Okay.
one that manages to punctuate them is Naomi Harris's Paula having this moment where she is screaming at Chiron, and you don't know what she
Hmm.
is saying because it is soundless, it is slow motion, it is a really disturbing scene. She's sort of
Yeah.
lit in neon pink and disappears into a room. Presumably, she's turning tricks to get money for drugs.
Yeah.
And you only hear what she says to him in a nightmare in the third part of the movie, which
Hmm.
makes it even more powerful because it's don't look at me. So it is, you're seeing me, you're looking at me, you can see me for what I am, and I do not want you to see this because this just, I cannot face up to what I am. For me, I
Yeah.
cannot face up to what I am to you and what I'm doing to you. It's
Yeah.
just incredible filmmaking.
Yeah, and it's such a powerful moment, not just because it resonates throughout all of the timelines, but also because you understand that people's biggest barrier or people's biggest apprehension is not necessarily having to face who they are. Everybody knows who they are in this movie. It's whether or not you want to admit to it, but it's other people seeing you
Yeah.
and you having to see yourself in their eyes and knowing, oh, I am X, the thing that I don't want to be seen as, whether that's addicted to drugs, whether that's engaging in sex work, whether that's queerness. Like, these are people who are doing what they need to do to survive, but it's also not pretty. And they don't want other people to be judging them.
Yeah. It's a phenomenal performance from everyone, really. I mean, the thing that
Yeah,
shocks me is that the three actors playing Chiron did not see each other's performances, and yet
I
it is such
know.
a singular performance throughout.
Hmm.
And I don't,
Yeah.
does that speak to the power of Barry Jenkins as a director? Does it speak to the power of the material? Is it both?
Yes. I think yes. Yes.
Yeah. It just
Yeah.
really impresses me that even body language, this
Hmm.
incredibly beefy, impressive specimen of a man, is reduced to a child again as soon as he bumps into Kevin. And
Hmm.
it is so instantly recognizable that that image of himself that he's been projecting is just gone as soon as he is in front of this man.
Yeah. I think one of the other things I most appreciate is the blend of like verbal dialogue as well as the lack thereof, because
Mm,
there are whole sections of this film that are told exclusively through visual language and as a result, performance, body language, and that kind of stuff. And then when you get a line, oftentimes there's so many hidden meanings behind it because people aren't always saying what they mean, or sometimes they're saying the quiet part out loud very, very loudly, and you're just very confronted by it as a result. But I was so taken with the level of trust that the film has in the audience to sit in the dialogue free sections, because particularly like when you get to Black, you realize this is a dude who doesn't say anything, to the point that he gets called on it, like, oh, you're still not going to talk, you're still not going to say anything to me. Like, it takes so much for him to open up.
yeah, it does. Yeah, the film stylistically is so striking because it feels so sort of dreamlike almost.
Hmm.
It doesn't really have a strong sense of time or place, and yet at the same time, it has such a unique sense of time and place. You know, it was shot in Liberty City, which was where Barry Jenkins and Terrell Alvin McCraney grew up. Strangely, they didn't know each other, but they both grew up in the same block almost. And but I don't get a strong sense of it being a film of the 90s, although I guess it probably is set in the 90s. I think they're children of the 80s who grew up in the 90s.
I don't know. Like, there's
Mm,
no visual cues, and the costuming even is kind of nondescript in that capacity. So I've never known how to read the film in terms of timing, apart from the jump from teenager to adulthood. We learned that both men, via dialogue, have spent time in prison.
mm,
And we can infer what Chiron was in for, because it's the attack on the homophobic bully who beat him up, and then he gets escorted away by police at the end of that, and then presumably he got out at some point, moved to Atlanta, and so on. But we hear tangentially that Kevin also went to prison because he's on probation, and he now has a child, and he's trying to like rearrange or find a way back into quote unquote respectable society. Like, so that's why he's working a fine but not great job as a cook and that kind of stuff. Like, he doesn't have a good apartment. He's obviously not as moneyed as Black is by dealing drugs, which is potentially more lucrative and profitable. But I like how there's context clues, but not enough to specifically say, like, like we don't get a time card that says, 2013 or 1994 or something like that. And in part, it kind of doesn't matter. Like,
Mm.
I gather that for people who maybe grew up in this environment, like I know that Barry Jenkins was also very careful about asking them and making sure that they were comfortable shooting on location because of the communities that they were depicting and wanting that to be authentic. I don't get a strong Florida vibe from this, but partially, again, I'm just like, oh, okay, because I'm not familiar with that. And it doesn't change the way I view the film, but it makes me wonder, if I lived in certain places, if I grew up among certain types of people, if I was, yes, Black, how much more would I be able to appreciate and take from this film? Because as a dumb white guy, I'm taking a lot, but I feel like there's probably even greater depths that I'm probably missing.
Yeah, I'm sure there are, but as it stands, it's an incredible piece of work just for us dumb white guys.
Yeah.
And it was duly awarded, so, and it is frequently mentioned as possibly one of the greatest achievements in filmmaking the last century.
Mm-hmm.
So if it means even more to other, groups of people, then more power to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's lost none of its impact over time.
No, it works just as well as the first time I saw it back in 2016.
Yeah.
I will say this one plays like gangbusters with an audience, though. Like watching it by myself in my apartment was fine. It was lovely. I didn't feel quite as emotionally affected as I did back in the day, but like I saw this at TIFF in a giant theater with like 350, 400 other people, and people were feeling it. Like there was a lot of emotional roller coaster in that audience as we made our way through the movie collectively.
Were you there when the director and the cast got up and did a Q&A?
No, I think this would have been the P&I screening. So it was a packed house
Okay.
of critics who were
Wow.
having a go of it.
Hardened
Which is rare because
critics.
usually we
Yeah.
we like to shut it down as much as Black does. Like show no weakness, show no emotion. Definitely don't cry.
No. Okay. Well, no, I just wondered because I listened to the Q&A today as part of my preparation for this, and
Okay.
the cast, I don't think some of them had seen the fully assembled film,
Oh, okay.
and they're in pieces. They're finding it very difficult to respond to the questions
Yeah.
because they are in pieces. Yeah.
Okay, why don't we switch over to Patreon and talk a little bit more about our specific categories. So, folks, if you want to join us over there, it's a mere $3 a month. We do have now 13 episodes where we have done bonus content for each of the films we've covered on the main feed, but also we have spoilery conversations about some new queer classics and maybe not so classics, but we go into a bit more detail. And then, of course, we have the extended reaction videos, which is how the Queer Gaze began. So you can watch the movie along with us and watch us get really animated on video.
Yes.
Yeah.
Depending on how bad the movie is.
Truly, yes. So hop on over to patreon.com/thequeergaze. And if you can, support the show. And if you can't, we would love if you would rate and review, because that also does help. We know it's familiar. You've heard it on every other podcast, but it's just because it's unfortunately very true.
It is. Tell a friend.
All right. Well, we'll see you over there, hopefully.
Yes.